Before this story ends, a man who runs a $3 billion company is going to stand in front of 12 people and say her name out loud. He is going to say it like an apology and a promise at the same time. He is going to risk everything to say it. But right now, at 2:09 in the morning, she does not know his name. He does not know hers. And somewhere in the space between those two facts is a story that is going to change both of them completely. Her name is Seraphine Cole. She is 28 years old. She is sitting alone at her desk in the dark, not sleeping, just existing in that gray space between exhaustion and dread, where she has been living for months. Her laptop screen glows with a performance report flagged in red by someone in the COO's office. She has read it 4 times. She still cannot find the part where she did anything wrong. Then her phone rings. Not the kind of ring that wakes you gently. The kind that pulls at something behind your ribs before your eyes are even open. National Marrow Donor Program. A match. A 9-year-old boy. Acute myeloid leukemia. High compatibility. Are you still willing? Seraphine looked at the red-flagged report on her screen. She looked at her coffee, stone cold in its paper cup. She opened her desk drawer and found a small hinged box, worn blue velvet, the kind that holds something precious and small. Inside were 2 pearl earrings that had belonged to her mother. She closed the box in her hand. Then she said yes. She did not ask the child's name. She did not need it. She had only one question before she hung up, and it was not about herself. Is he going to be okay? The nurse on the other end was quiet for just a moment. Then softly, that depends on you. Across the city, on the 8th floor of a children's hospital, a man who had not cried in 12 years sat beside a small bed and held his son's hand. Calloway Hartwell III was 52 floors above Manhattan every morning, in a glass office that cost more per square foot than most Americans earn in a year. He had faced senators across negotiating tables, dismantled boardroom coups without raising his voice, sent men twice his age out the door without blinking. Tonight he was wearing his dress shirt untucked over dark trousers, his Mont Blanc pen still clipped to the pocket out of pure muscle memory, and he was watching his 9-year-old son breathe. Eli was asleep, face pale, arms connected to quiet machines, but breathing. Still here, Dr. Marcus Webb knocked softly and stepped inside, keeping his voice low enough not to wake the boy. They found someone. The registry found a match. The donor said yes. Calloway did not look up from his son's face. When? 48 hours, Webb answered. Columbia Medical. Anonymous donor. High compatibility. He paused. This is real, Calloway. Calloway nodded once. His jaw worked. He pressed his son's hand carefully between both of his. The way you hold something you are terrified of losing. Tell her. Thank you. Webb hesitated at the door. She does not know who the patient is. Calloway's eyes stayed on his son's face. I know. Tell her anyway. Somewhere in this city, a woman is preparing to save this child's life. She has no idea that the same morning, the child's father will sign a document that ends hers. He will not read it. He will not ask what is in it. It will take him 12 seconds. And it will cost him more than he knows. Seraphine Cole had worked at Hartwell Medical Group for 4 years. She knew the sound of every elevator in the building, the exact temperament of every executive assistant on every floor, and the specific way the heating system ticked in the administrative wing when the temperature dropped below 40 degrees. She was precise, calm, thorough, and she remembered details that other people filed away and forgot. She had a gift for seeing how pieces fit together, which meant she was also very good at seeing when someone was deliberately making them not fit. She arrived at 8:47 that morning. 6 minutes early, which was always. She set her bag down, started her computer, and found an email in her inbox with the subject line marked urgent, sent by Human Resources at 11:53 the night before. No one sends an urgent HR email at 11 at night unless they want you to arrive already off balance. She read it once. Then she opened a new document and started taking notes. The date, the time, the language. She had learned this from her mother, who had spent 18 months fighting insurance companies over denied claims while going through chemotherapy, all with the kind of quiet, meticulous precision that had nothing to do with anger and everything to do with survival. You document everything, her mother used to say. Not because you are angry, because the truth needs somewhere to live. The hallway near the copy room was narrow. Seraphine was walking back from the kitchen when Priscilla Dunn appeared from the opposite direction and stopped directly in her path. Nothing Priscilla Dunn did was accidental. She was 41, Yale-educated, impeccably dressed in a silk blouse that cost more than Seraphine's monthly car payment. And she smiled the way certain women smile when they have already decided the outcome of a situation and are simply waiting for the other person to catch up. Seraphine. Her voice was warm in the way that meant the opposite of warm. I want to be direct with you because I think you are an intelligent woman. Seraphine stopped walking. She did not fill the silence. She had learned that silence was not weakness. Silence was a place where other people revealed themselves. There is a director position opening in the next quarter, Priscilla continued, the smile not wavering. I would not want you to waste your energy fighting things that are not going to change. Do you understand what I am saying? Seraphine held her coffee cup, looked at Priscilla for a long moment. Then she placed her answer down between them like a single, quiet card. I appreciate you being direct. I will be direct too. She paused. I am not fighting anything. I am documenting everything, and I am very patient. Something shifted behind Priscilla's eyes. Just one flicker, just enough. Seraphine stepped past her and walked back to her desk. She sat down and opened her laptop. She typed in the National Marrow Donor Program and clicked through to the registry page. She had looked at this page dozens of times over 3 years. She had first registered on a gray Tuesday in March, the day after she buried her mother in a small cemetery in Queens, with too many empty chairs and not enough flowers. She had not cried that day. She had sat in the hospital parking lot for 20 minutes, then driven home, made herself dinner, and opened her laptop because there was nothing else useful she could think to do with her grief. She had never told anyone at work about it. It was not their business. It was hers. The night before her procedure, someone is going to send Seraphine a message in the dark, a threat, and she is going to pick up her phone and do something that person absolutely did not expect. You will not believe how calm she is. Flashback, 3 years earlier, her mother's hospital room. The fluorescent lights had been on for days. Her mother was thinner now, lighter in a way that went beyond weight. But her eyes were still sharp and still warm, and still somehow quietly amused by the world. They found a match, her mother said. Seraphine sat up straight. When? Her mother looked toward the window. Last week. But he withdrew. He had the right to do. The registry said it happens. People get scared. Seraphine stared at her mother's hands. I am so sorry. Her mother shook her head. Do not be angry at him, Sera. Fear is human. She paused. But if you are ever in that position, if you are ever the one who could say yes. She stopped and looked at her daughter with a directness that felt like both a question and an answer. Do not let fear make your decision. I know. Her mother smiled, very tired, very gentle. My girl always knows. Back at her desk, Seraphine touched the small velvet box in her drawer. She closed her eyes for exactly 3 seconds. Then she picked up her pen and kept working. That evening, Seraphine sat on the floor of her Murray Hill apartment with a bowl of soup going cold and a medical textbook open across her knees. She had ordered it from Barnes & Noble 3 weeks ago, paid for it herself, because no one had asked her to read it and no one was going to give her credit for doing so. She was working toward a management certification. Nobody at Hartwell knew. She had decided some time ago to stop announcing goals and simply accomplish them and let the accomplishment be its own announcement. Her phone buzzed with a text from a coworker 2 floors up. Third round of admin restructuring since January. It is getting bad. She read it, set the phone face down, reached for her soup, which was cold, ate it anyway, because she had made it, and food did not deserve to be wasted. Then she went back to her textbook. Outside the window, the city moved the way it always moves, enormous and indifferent and busy with its own business. Somewhere to the northwest, in a hospital room she had never visited, a 9-year-old boy she had never met was sleeping. His father was sitting beside him in a chair that was not comfortable, but that he refused to trade for the cot the nurses offered every night. Some distances do not feel like distances until something bridges them. Seraphine read until midnight. Then she closed the book, washed the bowl, and went to bed. She set her alarm for 5:30. The procedure took 4.5 hours. She checked in at 6:30 in the morning. She told Human Resources she was taking personal days. No further explanation. She wore her mother's pearl earrings. The prep nurse noticed them and called them beautiful. Seraphine thanked her, said they were her mother's. The nurse said nothing more, which was exactly right. Dr. Marcus Webb came in to check her vitals before the anesthesia. He had careful hands and the kind of steadiness that made you believe things were going to be all right, even when you were not sure. He asked if she had any questions. She had one. How long before they would know if it worked? 6 to 8 weeks for engraftment. Webb met her eyes. Then we will know. She absorbed that, and if it does not work, he held her gaze steady and unhurried. That is not a road we are on right now. Okay. She lay back and let the anesthesia take her. 2 miles away, Calloway Hartwell sat in the family waiting area on the 8th floor with an untouched coffee and a laptop open to a spreadsheet he had not looked at once. His phone had 41 notifications. He had read none of them. Webb came around the corner, and Calloway was on his feet before the doctor had finished the first sentence. The procedure is underway. Everything is exactly as it should be. Calloway exhaled for the first time in approximately 6.5 hours. He sat back down. And the donor? Doing well. No complications. Webb paused, his voice dropping slightly. She asked about Eli first, before she went under. That was her first question. Something moved across Calloway's face. Not pity. Something closer to a recognition he did not have language for yet. The feeling of a weight carried alone. In the particular way of someone who has learned that some things simply do not get divided. Make sure someone checks on her regularly. Webb said he would. He stood to leave. Calloway stopped him with one more question, quietly, almost to himself. She asked if Eli was going to be okay in post-op. That was her first question. Yes. Long pause. I know you cannot answer this, but do you think she would want to know that it worked? When we know for certain, Webb considered. I think she would want to hear it from someone who understood what she gave up to make it happen. Calloway nodded. He sat for a long time in the not comfortable chair. He thought about a woman he had never met who had asked about a child she had never seen and then gone into a recovery room, alone, and not told anyone why. He thought, I owe her something I do not have words for yet. He did not know that he had already signed the paper that made the debt worse. Calloway is about to go back to his office, and while he is there, feeling something like hope for the first time, in 8 months, a slim manila folder is going to arrive on his desk. He is going to sign it without opening it. He is going to do it in 12 seconds. And it is going to be the worst 12 seconds of his life, even though he will not know that for another week. 2 days into her recovery, Seraphine was moving slowly through the third-floor hallway of Columbia Medical, following the walking circuit her doctor prescribed. Hospital gown, non-slip socks, hair pulled back, focused on the end of the corridor and on keeping her steps even. She did not hear the elevator open behind her. Calloway was walking quickly, the way he always walked, already calculating the next 15 minutes, already composing the 3 sentences he needed when he reached the 8th floor. Full suit. Board call at noon. He stopped to see Eli every morning without fail, rain or board calls or anything else. He came around the corner. Seraphine looked up. Their eyes met for exactly 1 second. He registered her as a patient. She registered him as a visitor in a suit. Neither face meant anything to the other. No reason to stop. He passed her at roughly 6 feet. She kept walking. He kept walking. The elevator opened. He stepped in. The doors closed. She reached the end of the corridor and turned around. She never knew who had just walked past her. He never knew what she had just given. Stay with that for a moment, because this is the moment the story holds its breath. The audience knows everything. The characters know nothing, and the gap between those two things is where all the tension lives. Back at his office at 11:14, Calloway pulled up his laptop to find Eli's latest blood work summary waiting at the top of his inbox. He opened it, read it twice, sat back. The numbers were better. For the first time in 8 months, better. He was still holding that quiet wave of relief when Priscilla walked in. She placed a slim folder on his desk without breaking stride. Administrative action form. The Coles situation I mentioned. HR needs it by end of week. Calloway kept his eyes on the blood work summary. What is the issue? Performance pattern. Priscilla's voice was warm and smooth and exactly calibrated. Attendance concerns. COO documentation is in the file. He reached for the Mont Blanc, signed on the line she indicated, pushed the folder back. She was gone before he looked up. 12 seconds. That is how long it took. Eli's results were better. The donor had survived the procedure, and Calloway Hartwell had just fired the person who made both of those things possible, while thinking about something else entirely. Seraphine is going to receive her termination notice in 4 days. She is going to open it slowly, read it completely, and not cry once. Then she is going to do something at 12:03 in the morning that Priscilla never saw coming. And 2 days after that, a doctor is going to walk into a boardroom and change everything. The termination notice arrived Thursday morning in a manila envelope, hand-delivered by an HR coordinator who could not quite meet her eyes. Seraphine thanked the woman, waited until she left. Then she opened the envelope and read the letter once, top to bottom, slowly. Performance-related separation, effective end of week, a list of infractions, dates, and all. She recognized none of the infractions as events that had actually occurred. She recognized every single date as one she had documentation for. She placed the letter on her desk. She looked at the small framed photograph of her mother at the right corner of her workspace. Her mother was smiling in it, not the careful smile of someone being photographed, but the real one, the one she made when something genuinely surprised her into happiness. Seraphine added the termination notice to her documentation folder. Then she kept working. That night, at 11:43, a message from a blocked number arrived on her phone. She read it once, set the phone face down on her kitchen table, sat with the words for a moment. If you attempt to use any medical information to contest this decision, you will be in violation of your employment confidentiality agreement. The firm has legal counsel prepared. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. She turned the phone back over. Read it again. She noticed that whoever sent this knew she had been absent for medical reasons. She noticed that they were afraid of that information specifically. She noticed that the only reason to preemptively threaten a legal action was if they already knew the legal action would fail. She reached for her Kindle. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, Book 4. The line she had been sitting with for weeks. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. She put the Kindle down, picked up her phone, found Dr. Marcus Webb's direct number. It was 11:47 in the evening. She called anyway. He answered on the second ring. One question, she told him. According to HIPAA, who has the legal right to voluntarily disclose their own medical information? Webb went quiet for a moment. The answer, when it came, was simple. The patient. Only the patient. Thank you. I am sorry for calling so late, Seraphine. His voice shifted, quieter and more careful. Is there something I should know about what is happening to you? A pause stretched between them. There will be. By tomorrow afternoon. She paused again. Keep your schedule clear for the morning board meeting if you can. She hung up, sat at her kitchen table, wrote a 2-paragraph authorization letter, granting Dr. Webb permission to disclose her participation in the donor program in any context necessary to protect her employment rights. Signed it, photographed it, emailed it at 12:03 in the morning with a single line. For the record, in case it is needed. Then she made herself a cup of tea and went to bed. This is not a woman who is angry. This is a woman who has decided. Anger is loud and easily managed. A woman who has decided is something else entirely. The quarterly meeting on the 32nd floor, 12 directors around a glass table. Calloway at the head, legal counsel at the far end. Priscilla 2 chairs to his left, cream jacket, composed in the way of someone who has attended these meetings so many times she has become part of the furniture. Dr. Marcus Webb moved through the philanthropic impact report efficiently. Slides, numbers, outcomes, the kind of presentation that 12 executives sit through with appropriate attention and minimal investment. Then he reached the final section. I want to close with a case that illustrates something about the culture of this organization that I think deserves specific acknowledgement. He pulled up a slide. 8 months ago, a patient in our pediatric oncology program needed a bone marrow donor. The search through the National Registry was long and difficult. 6 weeks ago, a compatible donor was found. The procedure took place at Columbia Medical, and I am pleased to report that the patient's most recent blood work shows the engraftment is progressing. He let the room absorb that. Then he continued, what I want to highlight today is that the donor is an employee of Hartwell Medical Group. The room shifted, not loudly, the way rooms shift when 12 people all adjust their attention at the same moment. Calloway looked up from the report in front of him. Repeat that. The donor is an employee of this company. She was on the National Registry, matched through standard protocol, agreed to proceed. She took personal days for the procedure and recovery. She did not disclose her participation to anyone here. Webb looked at him directly. She authorized me to disclose last night, after she received a threat. The word landed in the room like something dropped from height. A threat. Webb opened his folder. placed one sheet on the glass table, then a second. The first is the signed authorization I received at 12:03 this morning. The second is a screenshot of the threatening text message she received at 11:43 last night, sent from a blocked number. Calloway read both documents. His jaw tightened. He lifted the termination notice from his pre-meeting packet, looked at the dates listed in the infractions section, looked at the dates on Webb's medical documentation, the absences, the days marked unexplained and repeated. They corresponded exactly to the dates of the procedure and post-operative recovery. She had not been absent without reason. She had been in a recovery room saving his son's life. Calloway is holding two pieces of paper that tell a story he cannot unhear. The question is what he does next. And in about 90 seconds, a quiet voice from the far end of the table is going to provide the final piece of evidence that makes everything irreversible. Calloway set both documents down. His eyes moved to Priscilla. His voice when he spoke was very controlled. "Who sent that message? I do not know what you are referring to." "The threat, the blocked number. Who sent it?" "Calloway, these documents may be presented out of context." At the far end of the table, a younger board member placed his phone face up on the glass and slid it toward the center. His voice was precise and unhurried. "The metadata from that blocked number is visible in the company's internal communications log. The number resolves to a registered device on the corporate account." He glanced at Priscilla once briefly. "It is not blocked from the inside." Everyone in the room understood what that meant. Priscilla's face did not move. That was the tell. When everything inside a person is fighting for expression, and the surface holds perfectly, it is not composure. It is the last structural wall before a building comes down. Calloway stood. "This meeting is suspended." He looked around the table once, his voice steady and absolute. "And for the record, this board should know. I intend to reinstate Ms. Cole to a director-level position effective immediately. Issue a formal written apology into the corporate record and conduct an individual review of every personnel action taken under the previous COO's authority. Any of you who acted on those instructions should be prepared for that review." He picked up his folder. 15 minutes. He walked out. Not quickly. The way a man walks when he is absolutely certain of what he is about to do. He found Priscilla in the corridor outside the conference room. His voice was low, the specific quiet of someone who has stopped performing calm and arrived at it. "How long?" "I do not know what you mean. How long have you been doing this? Using my name and my signature to manage threats you decided were threats." He paused. "How many others?" Silence. "I signed that paper without reading it. You trusted me. I trusted you to manage the operation of this company, not to make personnel decisions based on what you were afraid of." He looked at her for a long moment. "What exactly were you afraid of, Priscilla?" She said nothing. That silence said everything. She came alone to that procedure. She recovered alone. She did not tell anyone here what she was doing, because it was none of our business. And when someone threatened her for it, she did not panic. She called a doctor at midnight to understand her legal rights, filed the correct paperwork, and came to work the next morning. He stopped. "That is who you decided was a threat." Very quietly, almost to herself. "I have run this operation for 6 years. I have been here longer than most of the board. I know that too." His voice did not soften. "HR will have your separation package ready before end of business. I would prefer you to be gone before I return from the hospital this afternoon." Calloway. He turned back once at the end of the corridor. The last thing he would ever say to her, and he said it without raising his voice. You spent 15 years building something on a foundation that was never yours, and the one thing you never accounted for was someone else's goodness. He walked back toward the elevator. Priscilla stood in that corridor for a long time. The lobby orchids had been changed that morning. Fresh white arrangements, very clean, very expensive. The marble floors were polished. The security desk was staffed. Everything was exactly as it always was, and she had no place in any of it anymore. The most complete form of justice is quiet. It looks like a woman standing alone in a hallway that no longer knows her name. On the fourth floor, Seraphine was packing her desk, not dramatically, carefully, the way you handle something that is painful but private. She folded a cardigan, removed the small succulent from the corner. She picked up her mother's photograph, looked at it, placed it back down. Her phone rang. Executive line. She looked at the screen for 9 seconds. Then she answered. The voice on the other end was different from the one she had heard in passing across. 4 years of hallways and meetings. It was lower. It was not performing anything, Miss Cole. I need to ask you not to leave the building today. May I ask why? Because I need to say something to you in person. And I would like to say it before you walk out that door. She looked at her mother's photograph. She looked at the cardigan in her bag. She looked at the small empty space on her desk where the photograph had been. She took the photograph out of her bag and placed it back on the desk. I will be here. He's about to come through that door. And the first thing he says is not what she expected. It is not what you expected either. She was standing when he came in, not defensive, not performing composure, just standing because sitting felt like waiting to be evaluated, and she was done with that. He stopped just inside the door. He did not go behind his desk. He stayed on the same side of the room. People who are trying to maintain power go behind their desks. People who are trying to say something true do not. I signed that form without reading it. She said nothing. That is not an excuse. It is the most accurate description I can give of what happened. He looked at her steadily. You were in a recovery room when those dates were filed. You were recovering from a procedure you chose to undergo alone, without telling anyone here, because it was not their business. And you understood that completely. And while you were doing that, I used a pen I did not need to use to sign away 4 years of your work. She held very still, not frozen, still in the way of a person who is listening completely. Eli's most recent blood work came back this morning. He paused. The engraftment is working. His counts are improving for the first time in 8 months. He is going to be okay. He stopped again. And, for a moment, the architecture of his face changed in a way that had nothing to do with the boardroom or the 41 floors above street level. Because of you. She closed her eyes for 1 second. Just one. How is he feeling? Tired, better, demanding to know when he can have pizza again. A breath of something close to a laugh moved through her. She pressed her lips together. I want to reinstate your position. A full written apology, formal correction of every personnel file altered under the previous COO, and a promotion to Director of Administrative Operations, effective immediately, with back pay from the date the false infractions were filed. He met her eyes. If you want it, if I want it, you have the right to refuse, the right to pursue legal remedies, the right to walk out of this building today and never look back. I would not blame you for any of it. She looked at him for a long time, not weighing, deciding. I want it. He nodded. Then she said, Can I ask you something? Does he like stories? Eli, does he like to be told stories? He blinked, the small kind of blink that happens when something entirely unexpected lands in exactly the right place. He lives for them. You do not have to tell him who I am. You do not have to tell him anything. But if you want to, you can tell him that the person who helped him is doing well, and that she would love to hear how his favorite story ends. Calloway looked at her. Something moved across his face. In that moment that had no name in the language of boardrooms and quarterly reports and glass tables 32 floors above the street, it was something older, something simpler. I will tell him. The elevator was empty when they both stepped. In 20 minutes later, she was leaving. He was heading to the parking level to drive to the hospital. The doors closed. He was facing forward, not looking at her when he spoke. I remember you. She turned. The hospital. Third floor corridor. You were in a gown. I walked past you. I was on my way to see Eli. He paused. I did not see you. You could not have known. I know. That is not the point. He finally looked at her, sideways, carefully. The point is that for 4 years you were in my building and I never once made space to know who was there. He paused. I would like that to be different now. She looked at the floor indicator above the doors, then at him. I noticed you the first year I worked here. Not because of anything personal, because you were the only senior executive who held the elevator door if someone was running for it. She paused. It seemed worth knowing about a person. He was quiet for a moment. I held it last Tuesday, I know. I was the one running. The lobby floor. The doors opened. Neither of them moved for exactly 3 seconds. Then she stepped out. He rode down to parking. Neither said goodbye. That Saturday, Seraphine is going to walk through a door she was not sure she would ever open. The person on the other side is 9 years old. He has been drawing her portrait for 3 weeks. He has never seen her face. What happens next is not what you expect. It is better. She wore her mother's pearl earrings on Saturday. The room on the 8th floor was brighter than she remembered, or maybe it was the same and she was different. Eli Hartwell was sitting up in his bed with a drawing pad across his knees, a cup of apple juice on the tray, and a NASA t-shirt that was slightly too big, the way children's shirts always seem to be when the child inside them has been ill and is just beginning to grow back into the world. Calloway stood near the window. He looked like a man who had slept for the first time in months, which on him translated to something approaching human. Eli, this is Seraphine. Eli looked up. He looked at her the way children look at things, completely and without the social architecture that adults use to make looking seem less nakedly curious. He looked at her face, her earrings, her arms. He stopped. On her right wrist, faded now but visible in the right light, was the small bruise from the IV placement, yellowish at the edges, faint green at the center. The mark of a needle that had gone in and done its work, and left this quiet evidence behind. Eli looked at it for a long moment. Then he looked up at Calloway. Dad, he said it carefully, is this the kind person? The room went absolutely still. What makes you ask that? Eli pointed at her wrist. When I wake up sometimes the nurses check my arm like that. He looked back at Seraphine. His eyes were dark and clear and completely unguarded. Did it hurt? She sat down in the chair beside his bed because her legs were done making decisions for her. A little, for a little while. He nodded with the particular gravity of someone who understands about things hurting for a little while. He reached under his drawing pad and pulled out a piece of paper. He held it up. It was a drawing in the careful style of a 9-year-old who has been working with intention. 2 figures, one small, in a bed, one larger, standing near the door, detailed in the body, but blank where the face should be. Below, in block letters that slanted slightly uphill, the kind person. I did not know what you looked like. He looked at her. Now I do. He reached for a green crayon. Can I draw your earrings? They look like moons. Seraphine looked at that drawing for a long time. She thought about the night 3 years ago in a hospital parking lot, about coming home and making dinner and opening a laptop and signing her name to a list she thought would never call her. She thought about her mother's voice in a room with fluorescent lights. Do not let fear make your decision. She thought about a hallway at 2 in the morning and a phone ringing and the particular clarity of a choice made not from courage exactly, but from knowing that the right thing was the only thing she was capable of choosing. Yes, draw the earrings. And that was how it started. Not with a declaration, not with a dramatic gesture, with a 9-year-old boy drawing pearl earrings shaped like moons while a woman sat beside him, and his father watched from the doorway. And the November light came through the hospital window, the way light moves when it is not trying to do anything except be present. 4 months later, Calloway told her he was falling in love with her. He said it in his kitchen on a Sunday morning, while Eli was watching cartoons in the other room and the coffee was still brewing, his back against the counter. No particular preamble. The way a person says something when they have been carrying it long enough that the carrying has become more uncomfortable than the saying. She was quiet for a moment. You know, you have been figuring it out for 3 months. I noticed somewhere around week 4. You could have mentioned it. You were not ready. She looked at him. Are you now? Then I am too. Eli came in, looking for the apple juice, and found 2 adults, approximately 2 feet apart, with the expression of people who have just said something true and are not entirely sure what to do next. He looked at them for a moment. Are you guys being weird? He considered this seriously. Okay. He got his juice and went back to his cartoons. Seraphine Cole never announced what she had done. She did not correct the people who underestimated her. She did not stand in the boardroom and deliver a speech. She did not ask anyone to recognize her sacrifice. She went home and made tea and read Marcus Aurelius and documented the truth and trusted the truth to arrive at its destination on its own schedule. And it did. Here is what this story leaves behind. Your value does not need permission to exist. Priscilla Dunn had the title, the access, the history, the relationships. She had every instrument of institutional power, and none of it could erase what Seraphine had done. Because what Seraphine had done existed in the world, whether Hartwell Medical Group acknowledged it or not. The truth is not a performance waiting for an audience. It simply is. The people who work hardest to erase you are the ones who already know what you are worth. Fear does not target the irrelevant. If someone is working that hard to make you small, it is because they already understand your size. And the love worth having finds you while you are already doing the right thing. Not when you are at your most put together. Not when you have performed your way into someone's attention. In the in-between moments. In a hospital corridor at 2 in the morning when you think no one important is watching. In the way you hold yourself in a room where you are being treated unfairly. In the question you ask when you wake up from anesthesia, which is not about yourself, but about a child you have never met. Until one Saturday in November, when a boy with a drawing pad holds up a portrait of you without a face and says, "Now I know." Good people do not always win quickly. Sometimes they are tired and underpaid and passed over and threatened in the dark and still asked to come in on Monday. But they do not lose. They are simply being held by time, protected from the things that were never going to be worth their energy anyway. Your silence is not weakness. It is evidence. If this story found you today, share it with someone who needed to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss a new chapter. And remember, The people still standing at the end of the story are not always the loudest ones in the room. They are the ones who decided.